Boom. Go for it, Scott.
Good day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. I am Scott Coleman, the owner of Glory Cloud Coffee. My cohort in this is actually not able to be with us today because Felicia with Highmark Distillery is making hand sanitizer in gigantic batches every day, and they're selling out before they can even get it to the people who originally asked them to do it. So there's some large chain grocery stores wanting her product. I know a large construction place in town bought a ton of it. And just so you know, this is her pivot move in this COVID shutdown, because she told me last Friday that they had to close all their doors and nobody's allowed in the building. They can only do curbside delivery and get, the pivot was people came to her asking her to make this product. There's a lot of unsafe sanitizer out there that's being offered free, where distillers are using the heads and the tails of the distilling process, which has methanol gas in the product, which is bad for your skin and terrible for you to breathe. So some of that could be a problem, along with the COVID virus and the mess that's going on out there. The part of what I've had to do for my Glory Cloud coffee and tea business is we've had to pivot and become retailer, curbside, and go completely online, as more than 90% of my customers have shut their doors and not allowed to do curbside. They don't have drive-throughs at most of these restaurants and coffee shops. And one of my big clients is Patagonia and the Gigafactory, and there's all kinds of stuff where they're not going through product either. And just as of yesterday, my parents gave me a good chunk of money, so we're going to be donating a ton of coffee to Renown and St. Mary's. So we're just pivoting to be in survival mode. So that's why I have a couple banker guys here. Wave your hand, Jeff, and then Ed. These guys are going to be talking about their loans and how banks can help and how the SBA can help. And so I'll let them share stuff. And we'll start first with a little intro from Will Hacker. So why don't you tell us your involvement and some of the info you shared yesterday on the podcast that I failed to record the audio of because I'm a goofball. Thank you, everybody.
My name is Will Hacker. I am director producer over at WP Films, and as well as I've done TV shows and things like that, work out of Atlanta and LA. Also Core Stories, which has been kind of, interestingly enough, my pivot, where I work for different production companies and have my own LLC, but I have a 501(c) that helps other nonprofit organizations and people who need to get up on their feet for video editing and video transmitting and live streaming. So I've been doing that nonstop. But yeah, it's been interesting to have friends all over the world, stuck in countries all over the world, and to kind of hear a broader scheme of like, this is what this country is saying. This is what America is saying, right? And all those things, especially having a wife that's a nurse. It's just really an interesting season.
For those people in the other countries, are they saying totally different things than what we're getting in the media and social media?
It's interesting. The lockdowns that are occurring are not necessarily coming across. I know that in China, there's massive movements where there's thousands and thousands of people on bridges pushing kind of legal and law enforcement to the edges of the bridges. India, there's tons of bribes going on. There is so much financial shifting just to kind of navigate all of those strange times in the other countries, where in America, some of that's happening, obviously. And I think that Jeff probably will speak a lot to, right, making sure that the government's making sure that there's not financial shenanigans going on. But in the other countries, it is nuts.
Okay, we'll come back to you in a few minutes to ask you about some of the hospital issues that you've learned about here locally in the Reno Sparks area. Jeff, why don't you go ahead and give us your little 90-second blurb.
Thank you, Scott, for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to sit here and share the information. My name is Jeff Ogan. I work for U.S. Bank. I am a SBA loan officer. So my job is to go out and then help small businesses grow by providing them funding so that they can be able to hire people, grow, and contribute to the GDP and the economy in the local region here. So today I'm going to be talking about the EIDL program and the PPP programs, where there's a lot of information and how best to apply for it, as well as how best to be able to utilize those programs to help your business survive, thrive, and keep moving forward. So thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks for coming on and sharing and helping me survive so I can pivot and have some income here fairly soon. Ed, introduce yourself and give us a little bit of info about what people need to know from you on how to keep their businesses alive and help keep
I
his
work
lights
for,
on.
yeah, I know. I work for CDFI. CDFI is a community development financial institution, and we're chartered by U.S. Treasury to make loans that banks otherwise would consider too risky or don't fall in their purview. Our sole mission is economic development to create jobs. And so when we're in the middle of a pandemic such as this, business people looking for where they get money, right? And usually we end up being the catch-all. And so I'll be talking about a little bit about micro-lending and CDFIs in general, and a COVID-19 response loan that's meant to be used as a bridge loan to fill the gap in between waiting for those funds. As we know that sometimes the government can be a little bureaucratic. They're not accustomed to doing direct services usually. And so we're, jumping in there to help with that.
Beautiful. I really appreciate you wonderful guys here and enjoyed the banter before, which we didn't record and would get us all fired. Thanks for being here. Hey, Will, why don't you give us a little bit of the truth about the health issues? Because I shared, Will and I are part of the same church here locally, and we hear a lot of stuff, and we've got a lot of people who are on both sides of political spectrums, and then we've got conspiracy theory friends that Bill Gates and Soros created this with the Harvard professor, and 5G is what sets this off, and people based off the chemtrails, and so there's all kinds of crazy stuff out there. But what have you learned?
They're getting all of them wrapped together at once, huh?
Yeah. So you have panic in the pandemic, which it's probably where the toilet paper went. Go ahead, Will.
Well, I just know that, right, everything that you should find out in terms of the actual numbers and statistics can be found on CDC, and there's a lot of information being put out by media sources with agendas. There's a lot of confusion. I would say just having a wife, right, who is a flight nurse. She's actually a care flight nurse that goes up in helicopters and takes airplane transports and does CCT, which is ground transports. She's encountering something that's fairly different than what we're being shared, in the sense that it's the multiplication of fear. It's the human nature side of things where people don't know whether or not they should go to a hospital. They don't know how long the incubation process is. They don't know if they can get it a second time. They don't know the effects. No one's done any studies to know whether or not this has a long-term effect. And so there's a lot of generating fear. And so from my wife's perspective, and we just had a pretty interesting meeting as a family with 4 kids, is that she's now being quarantined because she's encountering people that they do not know. They're getting false negatives. They do not know whether or not they have the COVID-19. So as a result, there are many, many nurses that have now been exposed. They're not sure, and so they have to be quarantined until they're positive they don't have it. That's putting an incredible strain on the industry as a whole. And what's happening is that if you have 50 people, let's say 100 people, that go into the hospital and only one person has it, it means that all 100 people now have been exposed to it. And so it's better to stay at home, but at the same time, people are scared, and they are driving this kind of like this train that is hard to stop, of getting getting people involved in getting the information without actually having the information. That's really the biggest problem. My wife and I just talked quite a bit. Here's all the information I know, babe. Then she comes back and says, here's all the information that I know, having seen it. And this is why it's multiplying at such a tough rate. And the reality is that they don't have a cure for it yet. You have to be on a ventilator. If it gets serious enough,
be on a ventilator in order to need treatment.
About 10 days in, about 7 to 10 days in, if it gets to the point you literally are suffocating, your lungs are filling up with fluid, almost like emphysema or a lung deficiency disease. And so what's happening is that there's really nothing that they can do. And so as a result, there's a lot of misinformation that's going out, and there's a lot of fear on everybody's behalf. And the nursing staff and the doctors are diminishing on a daily basis.
Can she give you an idea of how many are actually out? Are they at like 50% capacity staffing wise because of all the people having to be home quarantined?
I would say that they're, that's one of the issues that they had in Italy. They're getting close. She's giving me like a feeling of like, I would say 70%, maybe 60%. So what you're getting is nurses who generally, and doctors who generally work a 60-hour work week anyways, are now in the 70 to 75 work week. And if it continues to escalate in that fashion, you're looking at almost all the staff working 90, 95 hours.
Wow.
So.
Okay. That's amazing. I'm sure we could go on that for hours, and we'll do this again next week because it'll be totally different, which is the same for all the loan stuff, because in an hour, there's going to be another update. So Jeff, take it away and tell us some of the stuff that I failed to record yesterday because you were awesome. And you got to use your plane analogy. That was fantastic.
Oh, I've updated a little bit, just the idea that there are two programs out there presently. One is the EIDL, which is the EIDL, the Emergency Disaster Loan Program. And then there's the PPP, which is the Paycheck Protection Program. I'll talk about the EIDL first because of the fact that that one's actually administered and run by the SBA. So any applications that you're going to do needs to go through the SBA application and through the process. They're the ones that will be determining the loan amount, how much you're available for you, and what you can use it for. It is a loan. It is not a grant. So it's also going to be able to, so you can get anywhere from $25,000 all the way up to $2 million based upon the size of your business. You're going to have to show the ability to repay. You cannot be a business that's doing $200,000 to $300,000 and get a $2 million loan. They will be able to take your documentation, determine the amount of the loan, and then put together a package that's going to make sense for your business based upon putting everything together that's going to be best for your situation. The other thing is it can be amortized up to 30 years. That's not to say that it's going to be available for you for 30 years, but it will be available up to 30 years, and it's at a fixed interest rate of 3.75, which I think actually is a very good thing. But you're going to have to attest to the fact that your business has been impacted by the COVID-19 virus that's out there. These loans are also available to nonprofit organizations, churches, 501(c)(3)s, and those things. Other assorted organizations that are community service organizations. So those funds are also designed to be able to help them keep their doors open and being able to service the community. The other program that's out there right now is the PPP. That's the one that we've been seeing a great deal of press releases on. And keep in mind, what the press release giveth, the small print taketh away. So the idea is that it's really designed for you to be able to keep your employees employed at full salary without a reduction. So there's two components really. First off, that's an administrative loan that is being offered by the banks and guaranteed by the SBA. Once again, the banks are the ones that are going to be loaning the money, and the SBA is going to be guaranteeing it to the banks. but the bank's obligation is still to make sure that you are following up on all the due diligence and that you can still qualify. It's not the bank's responsibility to ensure that you qualify. It's going to be on the onus of the business owner. They're going to have to attest to that they qualify for this particular loan. And if they don't, then there could be potential repercussions later on in dealing with the loan. But once you do qualify for it, you apply through your local bank. US Bank is one of the ones that's offering it. I know that there's a number of other larger US banks out there that are not offering those loans out. We happen to be one of them. But the process is basically you go to the local bank, apply, or get them the application. We are only doing it online. Other banks are actually taking the physical application. Then what they're going to do is it's a 7-step process where what you do is you apply first, then you have to acknowledge it. Then they're going to look at it and see what you qualify for. And then they're going to send you for the documentation that's necessary. In regards to the loan amount that you're going to be able to achieve.
And this will help you keep the lights on and pay that bill.
Right. Yes.
You need to do that.
Unfortunately, gentlemen, because of the fact of the strain of the economy, we're not able to keep the lights on, so they keep switching it off on me. So what needs to happen then is you're going to apply for the local bank, and then what you're going to be able to do is you're going to have to go through the process with them, understanding that the PPP is really designed to keep your employees, once again, employed at a full rate. And so then what you do is you take your amount of salary, monies that are being given or to your employees. It's whatever's benefiting them. That means W-2s, retirements, health insurance, all the accoutrements of what it takes a business to pay. And then what you do is you take that amount on your average monthly amount based upon 2019 and times it times 2.5. So if your monthly wages are about $10,000, you would be able to qualify for a loan of about $25,000. And then what you do is you apply for it. It's designed to keep the businesses open, the employees employed, and not applying for unemployment. It's so that you can keep your doors open and keep your employees employed. And they are not allowed to double dip if that's the situation. So with the $25,000, there's the second portion, which is the forgiveness portion. That is, you have to apply 75% of the loan amount has to be shown to be paid out to your employees. And the balance of that, of the 25, can be used for other items, but they're very restrictive and you're going to have to prove this up later. Utilities, mortgages, leases, anything like that to keep your doors open. So that amount, and there, once again, you're going to have to be able to show that you've been able to spend that money on those particular items, and of that will be forgiven. If there's a portion that's not forgiven, it will turn into a loan, and it will be a 2-year loan with the potential to be able to be rolled into the EIDL, the EIDL loan. And then that would be structured in a different way once that is achieved. So those are the 2 programs right now that's out there. We're looking at taking the applications in and then actually getting the process down so that we can actually fund within about a 5-day period. That's our target. Please understand, we are building the plane as we're flying it through the storm, right?
Yeah, for all the regulations, the qualifications, what you can and can't do. I received an email today that I don't even know if it's real. I applied through my bank and then got an email that said, hey, you need to log into this other system to send your information here so that we can start uploading documents here. So it's a third party. It's not even through the bank. So I'll ask you about that later. That may not even be real.
Well, let me address that. US Bank is not using third-party applications and third-party associates to be able to. Other banks are allowed to hire out that. but I would be also very, very, very cautious in regards to uploading any documents to other third-party websites. So I would verify that email before you did anything and
That looks funky.
put your information out there. If it looks fishy, it's better to take your time and do it right, because you don't want this to come back to haunt you and or create a situation where you have a loan for yourself and not, see if we can get that there. There we go.
You don't really need those lights anyways. We can
Yeah.
still see you.
Right. I'm the only one here. That's why it's actually better for me to work here out of the office when nobody's in the office. So
Well,
thank you. Questions?
We'll get back to you. And Will,
Okay.
you can ask questions on this too, because you're probably thinking of stuff I'm not. Ed, go ahead and share some of your programs and what businesses need to do to survive and thrive.
Well, we're a little bit easier because the plane already exists, right? We've already got the wings on there. We typically, we have several programs. I'll talk about the ones that are more relevant to the situation. We are also an SBA lender, in which we do microloans, and microloans are typically loans from $500 to $50,000. We do $10,000 to $50,000. And within that program, what we've done is we've created a $25,000 COVID-19 response loan. And it's basically meant to be a bridge loan product. It takes anywhere from 3 to 5 days to get that. And it's much faster than our regular loans. Now, some of the great features of the loan is the speed at which we get it approved and get it funded. It's got a 1 to 4 year payback period. It's at a 6.5% rate. So it's a little higher than the SBA loans, right? But the intention is to have the EIDL loan, right? The emergency disaster loan come in and take it out. So you'll end back up at the 3.75%.
What does that mean? It would be rolled into the EIDL?
Yeah, well, it would be taken out. Yeah. So basically, this is a bridge loan. It's meant to use while you're waiting for the money from the government, right? On the EIDL, or the PPP.
He's right about that. The idea is that you take that loan amount and pay off the balance so that that loan rolls into something that's a little bit longer and more permanent for your
right,
situation.
Because
so
I mean,
it's more affordable.
people that applied for the loan, the emergency disaster assistance loan, most still haven't even heard back from the SBA, right? And they need the money quickly. These are, and this loan's really designed for very small businesses. If you could think of salons, coffee shops, mom and pop grocery stores, markets, that kind of stuff. It's designed for that. It's a working capital loan. So there isn't a lot of restrictions on what you can use it for, right? The other great feature of the loan is that because it's part of the SBA microloan program, right? We've created it within that credit facility, is that 6 months of that loan, you won't have to make payments on, and you'll never have to make those payments, right? The SBA is going to make those payments for you. It's going to pay the payment and the interest on that for 6 months. They're not going to put it at the end, right? You just won't have to make those payments. Now, when the EIDL loan comes in, they'll take out the rest of that loan. And so that's one of the important features of the loan, is that, for 6 months, you don't have to pay on it. We kind of decide based on your cash flow, everything else, and talking with the customer, if it's going to be a 1 year loan, if it's going to be a 2 year, or we're going to carry it for 4 years. Now, what'll happen is, for some reason, you don't qualify for the emergency disaster assistance loan, the PPP program, then we just carry the loan, right? And you'll end up paying, you'll still get the 6 months, but you'll end up at a 6.5% interest rate for, 4 years or whatever.
How would you still get the 6 months if you didn't qualify for the EIDL?
because it's two different SBA programs, EIDL and the micro loan program, two different SBA programs. On the microloan program, those are already authorized to have that 6 month deferment. But really what it is, it's the SBA paying 6 months of your principal and interest, and it doesn't get extended. They just pay for that. And that's for our existing microloans and our new microloans through June 15th. So even if I did a microloan now, say I do a $50,000 regular microloan, nothing to do with COVID, they would get the 6 months, right?
Okay.
But what's important is the $25,000 one is meant to be taken out with the emergency disaster loan, you know, and it's much faster. You know, one will take 3 to 5 days. The other one could take 3 weeks to get. It's much more restrictive on collateral. The interest rate is higher. So this $25,000 loan is really meant as a bridge. So it's working capital money that you can use until you get that other money. And if for some reason you don't get it, we keep the loan and we service the loan for the term.
Okay.
The other important thing is, and Jeff could probably speak to this, is Amber Cordova, our consulting team manager in Phoenix. She's been interfacing with SBA and all the different agencies that are involved in this. On that EIDL loan, there's a box in there that will ask you on the application, right? You can qualify for up to $10,000, enter your name, the bank name, routing number, account number, whatever. Those $10,000, they will send to you whether you qualify for the loan or don't qualify. They send those as an advance, anticipating you'll qualify for the loan. Those $10,000, assuming you use them for payroll, business expenses, kind of like that Jeff outlined.
Leases, utilities.
Yeah, you will get to keep, right? And so what I'm suggesting to people, because I deal with business owners all the time, is open a separate account for these. Open a separate banking or banking account, checking account for these. So as you spend money, out of those funds, to pay your lease, to pay your mortgage, to pay interest payments or payroll, it's much easier to track. And I'm talking to small business owners that don't have CPAs that work for them, that don't have a bookkeeper, they do their own accounting. It's much easier to track because they will come back
and ask you to show where it went.
tax year and go, how did you spend that money, right? And if you don't want it to convert to a loan, then you can easily produce all the receipts and all the transactions to say, this is how I spent it, this is where I spent it. And it becomes a very simple accounting procedure instead of running around and collecting receipts and sifting through your QuickBooks to what transactions qualified and what didn't qualify. So
that's brilliant. I'm going to need to talk to you tomorrow about that. See if I can use a current savings account that's going into the checking account to transfer money over, like when I'm paying off this utility bill or this lease bill.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's details I'll need to figure it out.
Some savings accounts have limits on the transactions you can make out of the savings account. It would be easier if you just opened up a different checking account and just
I think what Ed's saying is that it would make it much simpler for accounting for you to be able to track those funds going out. If you opened it up, the 10,000 went into that account, and then from there you spend it on all those items so that you can get those receipts and you can show that it was actually spent on those items. It makes it easier for an accounting point of view and being able to
oh yeah, I understand that. I use Xero instead of QuickBooks, so I'm just trying to map this out in my head to figure it out. But that's a different question. Jeff, let's hit the W-2s and 1099ers and how are individuals taking care of themselves, like what we talked about with the personal trainers and salon
at this point in time
and all that.
Great. Okay. So in regards to those individuals that are not W-2'd, 1099 employees, at this point under the PPP program, those companies are not allowed to include that in the loan request amount that they're looking to achieve. However, starting coming this Friday, that's the target date, they're going to allow the 1099 employees, real estate agents, personal trainers, hairstylists, people that are independent contractors, a lot of video editors, right? A lot of people that work in Hollywood are 1099 employees and receive a 1099 and then expense it out. They will be allowed coming this Friday to apply with the local banks and be able to request the monies and a loan amount that potentially, if you are going to be able to get that as a grant, convert it to a grant so it's not a loan. Those, I haven't seen the regulations. I don't know how that's going to play out, but I know that they're going to be allowed to apply for that and receive those funds as well. So that's going to be available for those small independent business people who have set up their own business, have a 1099, and are being able to apply that way. So that's available, but it should be starting on April the 10th.
And how is that information being disseminated? Like, how are people?
Oh,
how
you
are
have to
they
apply with your.
knowing- How do they know to go there at that time and where
They are going to have to apply with their local banks that are working with the program. I know US Bank is doing it. If you have a relationship, your best first step would be reaching out to your financial institution where you have your checking account now with your business account, and ask if they're participating in the PPP program. If they are, apply with them because they've already got a lot of your documentation so that they've already gone through the verification process. If not, at that point, what you can do at that point in time, at that point in time, then you might want to reach out to other lending institutions. From what I understand, there's about 65 nationwide that are lending. So your individual situation is, do I look better this way? Your individual situation is going to be a very large determinant in what you qualify for and where you apply.
And we'll start, it seems like we're going to start doing the PPP loans next week as well. We're authorized to do it. We just hadn't geared up for that, but it seems that there's a need because what's happening is people are going to their local banks and they're just hitting a brick wall. And so some are going to have to go out and hunt to get that loan and get that attention. It seems what some of the banks are doing, really the larger ones, if you've got a checking account or a depository relationship with them, that's box number 1. If you hold a business loan with them, that's checking box number 2. So there's kind of a hierarchy of where you will fall. It's just the reality of things. I think of Herb. It's not how big your bank is. It's how big you are with your bank, right? Sure. Mm-hmm. And so you're just going to have to bug them. In some respects, we're taking paper applications. If you're lucky, you'll be able to go online and fill out an application and then bug your personal banker or whoever it is. But you might have to go.
They're at home.
I've known of people.
Those people are at home. They're not in the bank anymore.
Yeah, well, they're still working. Some of them are working, and so it's not. I don't want to give the impression that this is a super easy process and you're just going to pick up the phone or you're going to go online and you're going to apply. The application process itself is fairly simple. They're not very complex documents to fill out, but to actually hear back from somebody or be able to turn that application in might be a little bit of a challenge. So expect that. Very few things in business are easy. If they were, everyone would be doing it, and this is no exception.
Yeah,
Jeff, you talked.
Go ahead, Will. Sorry.
You talked a little bit about double dipping. So my question would be kind of from a 1099 LLC perspective. Are you steering people in one way or the other, depending on, for instance, having my own business, but at the same time being an employee who takes contracts on? Is there, since you can't double dip, is there one direction or the other that you're steering people to, depending on how much income is coming in? Is that kind of what steers that? How do you make that determination if you can't double dip?
Well, no, what I'm talking about is regards to double dipping is applying for unemployment and then also having your employer pay your W-2 wages.
Got it.
Right. In regards to the 1099 employees having their own business, at this point in time, it's yet to be determined is the best way to put it.
Okay.
And those are the things that we're trying to work through, because you can see how, as we go through these processes, there's a lot of what ifs and how this plays out. If I do this and then this, and how you've structured your particular individual business is going to be a key determinant. So the short answer is yes, but we're, as a bank, not allowed to give you guidance on that.
Yeah.
My suggestion is to go to the SBA websites. The Chamber of Commerce, United States Chamber of Commerce has some really good ones as to who can qualify. I also have heard, but I wouldn't want to necessarily venture it, that they're going to allow 1099 employees to also apply for unemployment, at which point that's a determination by you as to what's going to be more suited to your situation. Yeah, I wish I could provide better insight, but
no, that's good. Yep. Yeah, I just needed clarity on the whole, right, the whether or not that affects that and how those things merge together. Because
yes.
I play in both. I play in both pools, so it's just kind of one.
And the short answer on that is yes. So it does get very complicated.
And it sounds like Monday we'll know more again on that.
Yeah. So if you go to, here's a shameless plug, right? If you go to PrestoMostLoans.org.
That's why I have you on here, so that you can plug your businesses.
How the heck do you spell that?
Well, I'm going to
spell
what does
it mean
in a second.
MISSISSIPPI.
Are you serious? Does it really?
So really, I'm saying loans.org. But so Prestamos, PRESTAMOS, and then loans.
You had to think about that.
He was thinking in Spanglish.
Go on there. There's a link, COVID-19 link on there. And Amber and Tim and the team, they're doing webinars, probably 2 a day, every other day, specifically covering all the PPP program, EIDL, our COVID-19 programs. And she'd probably be able to answer a question like you've got on the 1099 employees and stuff. And if she can't answer it, then you can ask her and she'll find out. And which, by the way, most CDFIs like ours are nonprofits. We're a 501c3. So, we're not looking to go out and take advantage and charge all sorts of monies for loans. The loans that we're making, the COVID-19 loans, have no fees, nothing like that. We're just trying to, jump in there and help business.
Just from a branding perspective, how is your company getting to everybody? Because it sure looks like we really just want the Chicanos por la casa.
Actually, we do help everybody, and we're very well known in the community, especially in Arizona, New Mexico. We're relatively new to Northern Nevada, been around for about a year. But we actually loan to everybody. And I think if you looked at our numbers,
I'm just looking at the website.
Yeah, it's
having that question.
It's how it started. It started back in 1969 during the Cesar Chavez days, right? And started by, I think, 6 or 7 students. And it grew from there. And now we have over 2,500 employees. Prestamos is just one division out of, I think, 30. And what we do is we provide economic development for everyone, not just Latinos. And any profit that we make rolls up to CPLC to pay for programs such as daycare, domestic violence programs, HIV programs, you know, so the list goes on and on. In Las Vegas, I think we're about ready to take over the homeless shelter in Las Vegas and run that. We have homeless programs as well in Phoenix. We have clinics. It's you know, it's a small organization with a big mission, but we get a lot done. So, you know, we have construction companies, and in Dayton, we built about, say 150 or 200 doors, houses, $80,000 to $100,000 under market value, great homes. And we've already filled them. Those are a lot of people that was the first home they've ever owned. And in Las Vegas, I think we built another 150, and we continue to do that. In Arizona, I believe we have over 4,000 doors. So, you know, we kind of talk to local leadership and folks and figure out what the community is lacking, and that's where we put our efforts and our focus on. And in Northern Nevada, it was micro lending and alternative lending in general. And so that's why I'm up here. And we also have a loan officer in Las Vegas, and she does a good job down there. And so, yeah, we just try to find where things are lacking and fill that need.
Most of that I had no idea about. So great information. That's kind of where we wanted to go as we bring this to a close, is saying, what stories are you hearing? What have you seen that's being done in the community where people are pulling together and helping out, helping each other? Give us some feel-good stories to know that we're going to get through this mess, and that people are going to come out better on the other end. And a lot of businesses are going to possibly have to change their model or their target or the direction they're going to survive. And maybe some great things in the business world are going to happen, and that'll kind of mitigate the losses of companies closing their doors, so that it'll somehow even out and make progress. But what are some feel-good stories that Will and Jeff, we'll start with you guys.
Why do I always get to go last?
Because you just talked. And we already feel really good about what you just shared.
I'm just giving you guys a hard time.
Yeah, well, you're buying beefies. For that long shameless plug.
Jeff's turn for beefies.
So, Will, you want to go first, or let me?
Yeah, go for it. While the lights are on.
Yeah, right.
Quick.
Well, first off, I just want to acknowledge that we're all in this together, and that U.S. Bank really recognizes the fact that the purpose of all these loans, and that what we're trying to do is help the businesses stay alive and keep the economy moving forward. Yes, we're a business. Yes, we need to make money and keep our employees employed as well. But at the same time, we recognize our social responsibility to the community, and that we, want to help contribute, and that we're here to help out. I've heard the good thing about is that of what I've noticed with a lot of entrepreneurs, small business owners, is that they're the visionaries. Those are the people who can see the future and are willing to put in the time and effort in order to work on it, to be able to achieve the goals that they've set for themselves. So they have the strength, the energy, and they're just looking for the resources and the support for the community to be able to work together, so that they can, not just survive, but look for opportunities to pivot and thrive. So I think that's a great thing for us, as well as, the economy and where we're at. And that's why I like and love my job as far as being an SBA lender and working with the small businesses, because they're looking to grow the business. They're looking for the future. And we, as the United States of America, have been through so much worse. I remember 2008. I remember 2001. And we're doing the right things. We're trying to keep financing in the market, because if you can keep financing in the market for the businesses, they'll look for opportunities to use that finance to grow and employ people and grow their business for the betterment of themselves, America, and their children. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah, I think I've seen a lot of interesting shifts in just behavior and the way in which businesses are operating, but also the networking that's happening. I think at some point in the near future, we're going to get really sick of online experience and social media. But at the same time, there's connections that I'm making. There are people that I'm operating with and alongside. There are people that I'm supporting, but at the same time being supported by that would not have happened since this kind of a quarantine / right social distance has occurred. So I think that there's it really depends on whether or not you're resistant to it, right, and frustrated and disappointed in the whole process, or whether or not you're kind of embracing it. Seems like the way in which you thrive is just kind of stepping in exactly what Jeff just said, seeing the future, seeing how this is actually a positive move, and watching people connect in a way that they've never done before. So even in my industry, it's interesting. Pressure and creativity, pressure always produces a higher level of creativity. And so where, right, you can be kind of resting on your laurels of like, hey, I'm going to show up, accomplish this. We're going to meet with these people and do this thing. Now you're really having to press in and think about it. But new avenues of creativity and productivity are definitely coming out, which is really, really cool to see. And then just trying to figure out, all right, where's that headed and how are we going to take advantage of that? So it's pretty fun.
Thank you, gentlemen. I just thought, have any of you guys been in the Reno area longer than 3 years?
Yeah.
I'm right at 3.
I'm almost at 20.
Jeff, you're pretty new up here, aren't you?
I haven't even been up here a year yet.
Okay.
I'm a California refugee.
He's definitely buying beefies.
I'm a Chicago kid, so when you say beefies, I always think Portillo's.
You can hear the Chicago out of there.
Chicago.
Yeah, he brings it out. He forces it out. All right. Well, this was awesome. Thank you, guys. I was watching a Facebook Live thing last night as somebody shared it, and that's been really interesting to see who's sharing what and who's putting information out there. So I'm watching a magician, Justin Impossible, interview a couple other people and Mayor Sheevy until like 9:15 p.m. last night, just talking about similar type things. How do people take care of each other, and how do they serve one another, and the things that are coming around, the way the homeless community is being loved, the way that people are providing food for people. I personally went to the Rail City Garden Center over the weekend, and they packed my trunk full of produce, and it was absolutely amazing. I'm not even sure where the heck it was going, where it was coming from, whether it was like Bonanza Produce or somebody. The bananas were marked with Walmart. So there's all kinds of giving, and I saw a line of 2 miles long Sunday of cars waiting over at Longley and McCarran to go get more food for themselves. So there's all kinds of crazy stuff happening with food scarcity, but people stepping up the supply and help. What were you going to say, Ed?
No, I just wanted to kind of reinforce what you're saying. Is I was I was joking. We were joking earlier, but I went over to La Chiquita and had a couple of tacos over there, right? But even they asked me, they said, hey, how can we give to the community? How do we do this? Can we fill grocery bags? We don't want a 2 mile long line and cause, all sorts of havoc. But can we adopt some families? What can we do? They've also lent equipment to other businesses so they could open their business and have curbside pickup, and we've helped arrange that. And when they asked, what are you going to charge us? I said, nothing, just use the equipment, get it back to us when you can open back up 100%. And so, we're so fortunate in this country, because I've been all over the world, and we're so fortunate that we have the resources to be able to do what we're doing. It's not perfect, right? It's still a pain. They go apply for these loans, go through the process, but we're so fortunate that we're able to just put out $2 trillion and maybe another trillion behind it and do that. Some countries, there's no hope for that. You know,
Right.
they really have to rough it.
Yep.
And, you know, so we're deeply, deeply inconvenienced, but there's families out there who've lost a loved one, who are more than just, you know, they're heartbroken. They're having to go through this. There's people in the hospital right now who are going through this by themselves. You know, so I just want to remind everybody how fortunate we are that we are in this great country and we do have the resources to be able to work on this, and we'll make it through it. We'll get through this, and we'll learn things about ourselves and about our companies and about America. And I think for the most part, the country's doing a great job just pulling together and getting through it. So
That was a beautiful benediction. You'll make a great preacher someday.
thank you.
Jeff or Will, any other closing thoughts?
I wouldn't want to. Ed did a good job.
Yep, that was good.
Beautiful.
And I think that that's the sentiment across the board. Absolutely.
Thanks, gentlemen. I think we'll call this one a day, and then I'm sure we'll need to come back and revisit a lot of these issues. And hopefully with pushing this out and getting this shared around the community, there'll be a bunch of questions that people ask on this so that we can continue to help each other and help small businesses grow and survive and thrive. So thank you very much. Appreciate you guys. And that's all for now.
Thanks.